Hello, good day, happy weekend. Thank God it's Friday. It's your favorite school psychologist here, Nwaebiem. I believe that teachers' mental well being is very important for classroom experiences. So, last week we talked about something wonderful empathy in the classroom, how we can be more empathetic and how we can cultivate that into our learners. Please, if you've not watched that video, I will advise that you do so. This week brings us to a very important topic, a topic that we actually need to take time on to reflect as educators, school owners, and parents. Most times I've seen schools that talk about the fact that they are inclusive, and when you check very well, it's just being inclusive in name. But that's for the special child. Every school ought to be inclusive. So we have to. Today we are talking about fostering inclusivity in the classroom, creating an environment where every child feels safe to learn. Yes, every school ought to be inclusive. The truth is that our learners have different needs. In fact, individual differences makes us to understand that our learners have different needs. They learn differently. They have different personalities, and as such, there is need to integrate all these things for effective classroom experiences. So if you are a teacher, don't just see that inclusivity belongs to just a situation where you have special children in the class. The truth is that most times we have learners who are actually special children, but because they are not diagnosed, we tend to lump all of them together and we carry on. Someone said that in a class of 20 learners, you can have 5 fast learners, 10 moderate learners, and 5 slow learners. That's already a classroom that will only thrive on inclusivity. So, an inclusive classrooms, they are not merely places where students from diverse backgrounds and abilities learn together. No, they are environments intentionally designed to ensure that every child feels respected, valued, and emotionally safe. I will keep saying this. If you don't connect to a child, you can't teach that child. If a child is not safe, if a child is not secure in an environment, there's a survival mode is activated and learning cannot. Trust breeds learning. An environment where a child has not has not trusted anyone, that child cannot learn. So for educators, we want to cultivate spaces where a child feels emotionally safe, where a child feels heard, where a child feels understood. Only then can that child trust enough to learn. So when we talk about inclusivity in the classroom, it is creating an atmosphere where a child is emotionally safe, where they can take learning risks. Yes, where a child is allowed to fail without making them feel bad for failing. So, where a child can engage authentically, where a child can build meaningful relationships. There was this particular video I watched about a particular child, a sickle cell child, whose mom came to pick from the school, and some children started mocking, attacking them, and things like that. I could see the fear in the child's face as he was crying, and the mom was trying to shush the students. In that particular environment, sorry to say, that child is not safe, is not emotionally safe. and that child cannot learn. This is the goal of this week's topic: inclusivity, fostering inclusivity in the classroom, in the school. So, as teachers, we have to take responsibility for this. So, why is inclusivity important? Why does it matter? Well, I've said it, creates emotional safety that enables learning. So, when security, emotional security is a prerequisite for attention, is a prerequisite for memory, is a prerequisite for executive function. So when a child does not feel safe, when a child does not feel included, when a child does not feel carried along, understood, heard in that particular environment, the child is anxious, the child cannot learn. So the brain shifts into survival mode that inhibits learning. So conversely, inclusive environment supports psychological safety for the child. Again, inclusivity fosters belonging that protects mental health. So a strong sense of belonging, if I feel a strong sense of belonging, it lowers my anxiety, improves mood, and increases resilience. So students who feel connected to school, they are less likely to be chronic absentees. They are less likely to be involved in disciplinary issues, and they are less likely to withdraw socially. So that's very important. So inclusion supports social and cognitive development. That's very important. It helps the child to it exposes the child to diverse perspectives. It fosters empathy, flexible thinking, and collaborative skills. So it helps to develop a child socially and cognitively. So the core principles of inclusive learning is in the classroom is number one, equity over equality. Equality says give all the students the same thing. Equity said give each student what they need. Like I said, I spoke, was it in the last video, in the last section, I said something. I said that in a classroom, because all children, all our learners are different, a teacher is supposed to be a great observer. You're supposed to be very observant. Having been with your children, having known their weaknesses, do you understand? It will help you to know what they need per time. I remember being in the classroom and I was asking questions. I kept asking repeatedly, do you understand this particular this thing? This person said no. Because I know their strengths, it helped me to come down to that particular level, break it down to that person. The other person said he doesn't understand. I come down to his particular, some of them I had to start giving them illustrations. Why? Because I know their capabilities. So in inclusive classroom, it is equity over equality. You don't treat all of them the same. You treat all of them the same, but you don't treat all of them the same. There's supposed to be differentiated learning because each and every one of them has their own their strengths. So another core principle of inclusivity in the classroom is strength-based approach. Strength-based approach. Rather than focusing on deficits, rather than focusing on what they are not getting right, you recognize the student's strengths and nurture each of their strengths. So this approach builds confidence, it fosters motivation. So this particular teacher came to me and was telling me about that a particular learner. She kept on hammering on what she's not doing right, what she's not doing right, where she's failing. She's forgetful. She's this. She's that. I had to ask her, this particular child, does she have any strength? Does she is there any place where she does so well? To me, yes, that she draws. She likes drawing and things like that. I said, that is it. Go back and see how you can tailor your learning in that direction. That's what differentiated learning is all about. So it is strength based. You focus on their strength, nurture their strength in line with that particular content you are delivering. So another aspect, another core principle is representation and cultural responsiveness. I can't say this enough. If you are in a classroom that have children from culture, diverse, how will I put it, ethnicity, you have to tailor your teaching, tailor your their learning experiences to meet them at that particular aspect, because we find out that most of these learners are quite very responsive to their own culture, to their own identity. So students see themselves in the curriculum, they see themselves in the classroom materials and teachers' interaction. So if you are culturally responsive, it simply means you are acknowledging and varying, you are valuing that diverse identities and integrating them meaningfully into instruction. I remember a particular day I had to tell the students to go back, learn a thing or two about your folk song. Come, let's practice with it. They came back, they were excited. Some of them that couldn't speak their language, they had to learn those songs in their languages, and they will feel they will feel belong. They will feel that sense of belonging. They will have that sense of belonging. So representation and cultural responsiveness. Another one is clear, consistent expectations. So in an inclusive classroom, there is clear, consistent expectation, predictable routines. We can't say this enough. So what are the practical strategies for fostering inclusivity? Number one strategy is what I call building relationships intentionally. See, as a teacher, you just have to do this. You just have to do this because children thrive in relationships. You connect to teach a child. So this is foundational. Students learn best from adults they can trust. So what do? Build that relationship with them. And one of the best ways to build this relationship with them is to be genuinely interested in their lives, genuinely interested in their interests, genuinely interested, genuinely care. Your action towards them, you greet them, you check in on them, brief one-on-one conversation, they talk to you, you listen actively, they find out that you are genuinely interested in them. So interested in their background, in their cultures, in their interests. I've won a student over one certain time by asking her, what's your name? She mentioned her name, what's the meaning? She couldn't tell me. I said, oh yeah, go back and ask your mom. When she came back, is this? So we started talking about the name and things like that. Had to refer her to a Greek mythology on that particular name. And this was how she opened up. A child that wasn't smiling in my class, we started smiling. We started being good. We developed a positive and a very cordial relationship. So be genuinely interested in them. Strong relationships reduces behavioral challenges by meeting students' emotional needs proactively. I've come to a particular class and some teachers were warning me, these are the notorious ones. I don't need to have a confrontation with them to take interest in them. And once they saw that I was interested in them, asking them things about their hobbies and things like that, holding brief conversation, making light jokes and things like that, they relaxed. So why other teachers are complaining that these ones are disrespectful and things like that, I don't have the same experience with them because I have developed a relationship with them. So I think it's necessary for we teachers to build relationships with our students. You have that student you think is not following, things like that. Have you shown genuine care? That's one of the ways to foster inclusivity. Another way to foster inclusivity is to establish norms of respect and collaboration. Respect respect your learners. I know this might sound off, but it's true. Respect them. You know how you want to be treated. You know how you want someone to talk to you. Talk to them in that manner. If you have teenagers, that's very important. If you are attending to teenagers, it's very important. The way you talk to them, the way you address them is very important. Show them that you respect them. Show them that you respect them. Then another one is norms, creating classroom norms. Do it with them, do it together. Use inclusive language consistently. In this class, we don't do this. In this class, we don't do this. Things like that. Then reinforce those norms with positive narration, not punitive statements. I remember this particular student that she had a face off with a teacher, and when I was talking to her, she was like, every time he'll be threatening me with suspension. Please, in as much as you want to correct that particular student, please don't make use of threats. For for younger learners, it's some of them withdraw. Some of them withdraw to their shell because they feel bad. For teenagers, they feel is a threat and they can misbehave. They can misbehave. You're a human being, they are human beings. So approach them from humanity point of view. Approach them as humans. Respect. Then design physically and emotionally welcoming space. The environment influences behavior. Display books, posters, materials, provide flexible seating arrangements, ensure the classroom layout promotes accessibility for learners, especially those with disability. Then use calm colors and predictable organization. But I must warn, I have seen a particular classroom looking like a masquerade hut. Please, the colors, the bling blings and things like that. If you have an autistic child, ADHD your thing, just know that you have created an avenue for distraction and sensory overload and things like that. The classroom is supposed to be simple, calm, and welcoming. Another way to do this is to incorporate SEL, that's social emotional learning, into daily instructions. I think when we were growing up, we call these things moral instruction. So incorporate it, help them to build skills that are necessary to navigate that inclusive community. Teach them empathy, teach them communication, teach them how to manage their emotions. You can go back to our emotional awareness and emotional intelligence this thing. Teach them how to repair harm. Use role play, use literature, explore. I remember, was it day before yesterday? I had to during our social emotional learning time, we had to use this Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. I incorporated it as using literature to teach social emotional learning. Normalize healthy help seeking and emotional expression. Tell them, I used to say this, emotions are neutral, both the ones we call negative and positive. There's nothing like negative and positive emotions. Emotions are emotions. It is how you choose to express those emotions. So teach them to express their emotions. You can be angry and not shout and break things and things like that. And one of the ways to teach them is to one of the ways to help them cultivate healthy ways of expressing emotions is to acknowledge their emotions. Acknowledge a child is angry. Yes, they are angry for this particular thing. They are human beings. They are human beings with emotion. They should be allowed to express it, but in a healthy way. And it starts by helping them to acknowledge their emotions. And you as well should also acknowledge those emotions. So, use inclusive and differentiated instructions. I'm so big on this because we have a lot of learners with disabilities, undiagnosed. But like I said, you as a teacher should be observant. So when you notice this is not working with this particular student, can you find other ways to make it work for them? To make learning easier for them? That's why we normally talk about instructional aids that versify your instructional materials, visuals, hands-on, and things like that. I told you about a particular lesson I wanted to deliver. I came to class with my laptop. We looked at some things. We watched a documentary. After that, they had a test and they did very well, exceptionally well in that particular distance. So use inclusive and differentiated instructions. You know, this particular learner, this is where he or she is struggling with. Meet them at that level. So this is core to culturally responsive teaching, that is differentiated instructions. And again, I forgot this. One of the ways to be culturally competent, to display cultural competence in the classroom, is to pronounce the student's name correctly and honor their preferred identifiers. There was this particular child I had in my class. He's from the north. I couldn't pronounce that name. I tell him, okay, what do I call you? Because I can't pronounce this particular name for now. But that doesn't mean I won't keep trying to get that name. It made them feel that they matter. He told me, oh yeah, just call me this. And since then, we've been good. We've been good. So identity. Don't joke with your student's identity. Don't joke with it. Affirm it. Affirm it. And try as much as possible to use inclusive languages. Avoid bias. Avoid bias. And address it. Address microaggression. Something happened in class, and this particular child started crying. We were discussing something, and she started crying. At a point I had to ask her, what is it? And she said that, okay, they've been mocking me because of this particular thing. I had to address it immediately. And it was something as a result of her body, her body size and things like that. I had to address it immediately. Using bias statements, microaggression, address it immediately. Address it. Then foster peer connection. Students need to bond with each other, not just with teachers. Use cooperative learning. Mixed ability groups and things like that. Pair students intentionally to develop new friendships. Then teach conflict resolution and peer mediated strategies. You teach them to support each other. I remember splitting the class into groups. We were supposed to handle a particular project, and one student approached me. I can't be in the same distance. I said, you have to learn to be with him. And by the time they were done with that, and he was one that presented first, the other one presented second, I had to call them together. I had to call them when everything was settled. I called them and told them, and ask them questions concerning how they worked together with it. New friendship developed from that particular group. I've had these students who are always at each other's throats. But by the time I was done with them, pairing them, things like that, sending both of them on errands and things like that, they are now much more closer, much more closer than me, who paired them. So, support students with trauma and anxiety. See, we are the first responders in the classroom as educators. So, we have to be trauma informed so that we can be sensitive enough to understand where this child is coming from and offer support. So many behaviors we see in the classroom are rooted in neurological survival responses. So providing a calm space, tools, allowing breakouts and movement, using soft starts, transition, things like that, communicate clearly about changes in routines and things like that, and being that safe space where these children feel safe to unburden themselves is very important. Also, another thing to do, one other strategy is to partner with families. Like I said, especially the inclusive, the special students. Partner with their families, discuss, collaborate, communicate with those families, ask them questions, know how. Somebody said something, and I think I buy that thing. You have an autistic child in classroom, and the parents are telling you he's not like this. Maybe he's displaying a kind of a behavior in class, and you are talking with the parents. That's where communication comes in. You're talking with the parents, and they're telling you he's not like this at home. One thing I need you to do is not for you to say, the home and the class, they are different. I think it requires you to be humble enough. What are you people doing? How are you people able to achieve that at home? So collaborate with their families. So here are quick actionable steps we can implement. Start with a community building routine, morning meeting, check-in questions and things like that. Teach and practice conflict resolution scripts, review classroom norms weekly, offer students choice in at least one part of the day. What are we supposed to do? What do we do now? I normally do it in my class. Sometimes when I come to the class, I ask them, where are we? Where do we start from? What do you think we need to do? Things like that. It makes you know that yes, you are interested in bringing them in making decisions. So use the you belong here statement with students, especially those who are feeling off. This will help you to integrate them into the classroom. Then reflect. Ask yourself whose voices are missing from my lesson today. I didn't hear you, I think that area is where I can give myself a huge credit. Can give myself a huge credit. I check in on my students a lot. And sometimes when I check in on them, how many you weren't in my class? What happened? I was sick. Hey, Chikezi, I didn't hear your voice today. What happened? Things like that. I've used this a lot to get most of them to start engaging in my class, and it's very, very important. It's very, very necessary. Thank you very much. This is where we stop for today. So next week we will be going into our inclusive classroom mode. It's time to get our students to engage, to feel safe, to feel heard, understood in our classroom. So I want you to make it a form of commitment to do next week tasks, involve your students in the tasks, and you will see how next week turns out. You start becoming more empathetic, you start becoming more understanding, more patient with your class, with your learners. So let's do this. And before I go, let me remind you to reset, reconnect, and reignite your passion. I don't want you walking into the school compound on Monday feeling all down. It's time to help yourself. Stay motivated. The term is about to end. Stay motivated. Thank you so much. If you've not subscribed to this channel, I want to tell you that you are missing out. So subscribe so that once we drop new videos, you'll be able to get your notifications and watch. Thank you very much. I remain your favorite school psychologist, Nwaebiem. Bye.